Today I'm going to transform this boring bed in our front yard to give it some more structure with a retaining wall and a nice raised bed look. This is a project you can easily do in a weekend. I'm Brad from Fix This Build That. Let's build something awesome. So the first thing to do is grab a string line and some stakes and to string it out and find out what the actual drop is from one side to the other. Then we can start planning out the wall. So I came down to the other end of the bed and I'm right at the edge of the porch here, and that's where we're gonna have our line. And I've got it at 90 inches, which is the same distance from the porch to the other stake. So I'm just gonna stake this in and tie it up right at my 90 inches. The knot that I tied here was a taut line hitch, which is super helpful. Take your loose end, you cross it over the top, do one loop under, another loop under, then come back over the top of this one and back in. You can just pull that tight. And now you have a line that won't slip, but you can adjust it any way you need it, and it keeps tension and it doesn't move. All right, so here's the pavers that I'm gonna be using. It's a nice thick 4-inch one, and these are tumbled and they're wedge shaped. So we'll talk more about that later. So this is gonna be the highest part over here next to the sidewalk, and I want the stone to be about 2.5 inches above the surface, so 1.5 inches down. So that's where I put my stake. I use this measurement to put the line 2.5 inches from the sidewalk, so that starts my reference line. And then we'll run it and take measurements off of that as we go down. Now I can use my taut line and throw a little line bubble level on it to get level. The stakes are all in, my lines are level, and now I can take the measurement. So we were 2.5 inches high over the sidewalk, and now all the way back at this end, at the deepest point, we are right about 14 inches. So I've got 14 inches between this line and the ground, and that quickly goes to 12 inches and then 10 and 9 inches at the corner. So to figure out how many pavers I'll need, I'll just divide the thickness, which is 4 inches, into 14. And that gives me 3.5. Now that's nice because I will just round up and I will use 4 pavers. And my bottom paver will be halfway buried in the ground. So think about that when you're rounding up. You want to have that bottom layer buried at least half, and maybe even more the higher your wall is going to be. So I'm going to mark out my 16 inches on this little stick here, but I'm also going to add 3 inches for my paver base. So I'm actually going to be digging out this trench 19 inches in the front. I'm also going to make marks at 4-inch increments from that 19 inches. So when I go from 4 stones to 3 stones to 2 stones, I can measure it that way. So I've got the trench on this short side dug, and then I did kind of an initial dig all the way down. But somewhere in between here and right about over here, I'm gonna go from 4 bricks to 3 to 2. So I'm not exactly sure how deep I need it in all of these areas. So what I wanna do is start kind of building this out and then see how it works around this corner. And the corner's gonna be a whole other thing that we have to talk about. So for right now, I think it's good. I got a late start to the day. Susan's calling me in for dinner, so we'll pick it up tomorrow. All right, so today has been filled with some challenges already. I came out this morning and I was checking the level lines just to make sure that nothing had moved, and they were totally off. So I readjusted everything and then looked, and it was like 4 inches lower. So I scratched my head for about 15 minutes, and then I realized that the bubble level actually is not level. So a great way to check your bubble level is to level it out and then turn it 180 degrees. That bubble should remain exactly in the same place, and if it doesn't, then it's out. So I got a new one. We leveled everything out, and now everything came down a bit. So we're actually gonna be doing 3 stones here. So make sure you check your tools and equipment before you start doing all your digging. I've got it all leveled out now, and I had to backfill some of that dirt. Everything's tamped back down, and now I am at 15 inches over here for the 3 pavers and 11 inches where I go to the 2. And I do have the transition right here. But this is like the most important area, so as we go into it, I wanna make sure that's gonna all line up on the top. So I did a mock-up, and let me show you what it looks like. All right, so I made this little layout, and this would have been great when I was a kid playing Army in the backyard. Pew, 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 pew. But this is a perfect representation of what I want it to look like when it's in the trench. So because these stones are keystone, if you line them up edge to edge, then they make this curve. And I want to make sure that the top, it doesn't have huge gaps. So I set this up just to kind of get a feel for what I needed to do at the bottom row to make sure that the top row looked good. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the ground because you want to make sure that your trench is right before you start putting in your paver base, because once that's in there, it'll be a huge pain in the butt to change things later. So running it down to the wall, I can see that I'm gonna have a little less than half a brick at the end, which is fine. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna be like a small little sliver that was gonna be maybe 1 or 2 inches. Now, a lot of times people just start from the wall and work the way out, and that's probably the more traditional way, but I really wanted to make sure that I was gonna nail that curve on the corner and hit that transition, so I started there. But you can really do it either way, because it's your wall. Do what you want. All right, the first layer is the paver base, and I'm just gonna layer this in about 2 inches deep, and then we'll tamp it down and get it really flat. All right, we got some paver sand here, and I transferred it into a bucket because it's just so much easier to pour in than in the bag. So I'm gonna put in a 1-inch base, and I'm gonna smooth that out and get it level. Again, I'm starting in the corner here. I'm just gonna use a little concrete tool to help smooth it out and move it around. This is where you wanna start checking for level too. Get any high spots, screed it out. You use a smaller level to go front to back because you obviously can't pick that up with the bigger level. All right, now I'm gonna start over here in this corner, and once you get these bricks going, then you can level them off each other. But with these tumbled stones, it's a little difficult because they're not flat on top. But you can just add a little bit of sand underneath them if it doesn't look level. You just knock them into place with a rubber mallet. I'm just gonna work my way around. So see, I have about a 1/2 inch gap in between these, and that's because it's the base row, and as you go up, you're gonna inset them. And as you inset them, that gap will close. So in the top layer, these will all be nice and flush, but they'll line up on the blocks below them. It's bright and sunny this morning, and I need to cut this stone down on that first tile to fit up against the wall. So I'm just going to use a cold chisel and a sledgehammer to do that. I've also used tile saws, but these stones are 4 inches thick, which is too big for my 7-inch blade. So I'm gonna try it by hand and we'll see what happens. I'm just gonna strike a line down this, and I'm gonna do this all the way around because it'll help it split easier. All right, that actually split pretty well, especially for a bottom layer. On the top layer, may need to adjust it a little bit, but that was a pretty straight line split there. Woo, like a glove. We've got the first row in, and just like before, I'm gonna start at the corner and then work my way back because I am using this keystone shape on the brick, and I wanna make sure that it's all gonna hit up properly when I get to the end. So for these, I'm gonna put them down, and I'm going to center on the gap below it, but I'm also just gonna set these back a little bit. You want the wall moving in as it goes up. And I'm just gonna leave a little bit of a gap here in between them, so on that next layer, they can be tight together. Right as I come around this turn, this is where that bottom stone starts getting fully submerged into the ground. But once that stone goes under the ground, that's where I transition to just 2 layers versus 3 layers that we had over here. So now I've put some extra dirt in here, and I'm gonna build up the paver stone and the sand so that when I put the next rock in, it'll sit flush on top of the last paver in the first row. I don't think hitting this with a mallet really does anything. I think it's just all an illusion. And it's whispering, I hate you. All right guys, pit stop here because I'm gonna be honest. These things are kicking my butt. I don't understand how I can keep taking away so much sand and it keeps not being level. This is the most worthless footage ever. It's just me pounding on a rock for 20 minutes. Ooh, that was too low. These tumbled stones look amazing, but they are so hard to level. And it's just because there's the ups and downs. So if you're using especially a small level like this, on one side of the brick you might be up here and another side you might be over here. So I'm really having a hard time with these. So a 4-foot level is really important, but man, the tumbled stones are tough. You can go with the flat variety. It's gonna be a lot easier. Let's keep going though. We can do it. All right, so I've got the whole second row laid out up into where it's gonna transition into the final layer over here. But coming around this corner is gonna be a little tricky. The problem is I'm working between two fixed points, the end of the house over here and the sidewalk here. And so I'm kind of at the mercy of that length and how the bricks end up angled at this last row. So I'll probably have to have a gap in the top here to make this curve. I'll show you what I mean on the top row, but either way, we can figure a way around it and might be able to cut some things and make it look a little nicer. We're almost ready for the top row, but before I get to that, the second row is still just sitting here, and I want to use some construction adhesive to block those together. And you want to make sure you get the one that is specifically for landscape. I'm going to put this down on top of the second row, get these all in place, and then we can move on to the final row. I'm just going to take these up, and you want to make sure that the surfaces are free of dust, at least just give them a quick little dusting. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want to make sure that that adhesive is going to set right. When I put this down, I'm going to put it on the high spots because the bottoms of these stones are flat. So you want it on the high spots to make sure that the adhesive is going to stick. So I'm going to work my way through the rest and then we'll be ready for the next layer. Now we're ready for the top layer, and again, just like I did before, I wanted to start with the corner here. So you can do this or not. Honestly, I'm definitely over-engineering this because I am still a recovering engineer, and I try to get everything just perfect, but these are stones, and none of it's gonna be perfect. But this looks good to me, so I'll start removing these one at a time and then work my way back to the wall, and then we can go on the straight path, which should be the easiest part of the whole job. And when you're putting these down, you still want that about ½ inch overlap on the back so that everything leans in as it goes up. And these don't have a lip like some of the pavers do, so you're gonna have to do that by eye. And the nice thing, the adhesive doesn't set immediately, so you can still kind of wiggle these around once you put them in place. When you're setting these, you can kind of see where it wiggles and then put more of the adhesive so it'll be nice and firm attachment. All right, we're coming up to the last corner here, and it's not laid out exactly how I would want it. If I lay these in here the way that I want to, then I'm not gonna be able to start turning because this next brick, the angle is going the wrong way. So when I start this next brick here, it's just gonna shoot off straight. So what I'm gonna have to do is just take off the back end of this brick right here, and I can do that again just with the chisel, and then I should be able to make the turn, and we'll try to clean it up and make it look tumbled, but it shouldn't stand out that much. All right, I went ahead and got this thing cut, and didn't turn out exactly how I wanted. There's still quite a bit of gap here. That's okay. We've got more rocks. I tried again. This one looks great. Now I can continue along with there, and this thing fits right in. This actually turned out a lot better than I thought it would. I've got the wall in, and with the adhesive, it is nice and solid, but there's some things we need to do on the backside to make sure that it's gonna hold up over time. And part of that's gonna be raising the soil in the bed and putting some support behind it. So I went ahead and I removed the liriope that we had there, as well as I trimmed up these yew bushes just so that we can be prepared for that. On this far side of the wall, we have a nice trench, so that's gonna be great, but around the front edge, we really don't have a spot to put that backfill of stone I'm gonna put in. So I'm gonna build that up first. I can start putting in some stone and making sure this wall's got some good support behind it and it's not gonna erode away. We're getting close to level on the bed, but I want the top layer of soil to be really good for the flowers, so I'm gonna be mixing in some Vigoro all-purpose garden soil with it. I got this from the Home Depot, who is the sponsor of today's video. So I'm just a beginner gardener, but I've been using Vigoro products for a couple years now, and they've been giving me really good results. They've got a lot of different items, from landscaping fabric to the river rocks, which I'm gonna use behind the retaining wall, and of course, mulch and flowers. I'll be using a lot of those to make the garden bed look really amazing, and if you're trying to build a bigger or bolder garden, then you can check them out. They make high quality products that are affordable. They are available at the Home Depot. I'll have links down below in the description to all the items that I use, so you can go check them out. And a big thank you to Home Depot for sponsoring today's video. And right behind the wall, we're gonna add some stone that's gonna help give it some drainage as well as some support. So I cut some of this Vigoro fabric liner, and I'm just gonna put this down in here. The fabric liner is gonna keep the rocks from getting all clogged up with dirt, as well as it's gonna help that sand from eroding into it. And the stones I'm using are the Vigoro River Pebbles, and I'm just gonna dump them down in there. They're kind of a medium-sized rock, so they're gonna add a lot of support, but they're gonna let a ton of water go through so the water can come out the ends and go through the slope that I graded the bed with. I'm just gonna fill these rocks up to the top of this little trench here. Now to close this off, I'm just gonna fold it over, and then we'll cover that over with some dirt. Here along the front, where it's only 2 bricks, I wasn't able to get as much of a trench here that I would like, so it's gonna be a little bit harder to kind of get it contained. I'm gonna do my best to pour those rocks in and then kind of fold them over and then backfill it with dirt, and I think that'll just help push everything up against the wall. But honestly, since this wall is only 2 bricks high, the support's not gonna matter a whole lot. It's gonna be more about the drainage anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. All right, I've got the bed pretty well leveled out. I'm just gonna go over it with some fresh landscape fabric. Then I can transplant the liriope and put in some new Vigoro flowers and some Vigoro mulch on top, and we'll be ready for the reveal. This was a lot of hard work, but definitely doable for a beginner. I love how it turned out. We have some extra space here in the bed, and it really makes a statement in the front yard now. If you want to check out some other outdoor videos, I've got a playlist queued up for you right there I think you're gonna love. I want to give a big thank you to those folks that have been joining the FTBT Builders Club. And until next time, guys, get out there and build something awesome.